Hello everyone. Good evening from Bangladesh. I'm Rezwan Chaudhry here. I'm working as a IBPIP teacher at Abdul Qadir International School in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Sabah Yusuf. She's a international educator and she's going to talk about 100 children's languages. So let's welcome to Miss Sabah. Thank you, Sabah. You can go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Rizwan. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I'd also like to thank Ms. Asnaha for inviting me to be here. So, yes, as I'm going to talk about today, I am going to speak an hour now. Today, I'm going to speak about the 100 languages of children. It is a very famous educational pedagogy that was put forward by Lorris Malaguzzi. To tell you a little bit about Lorris Malaguzzi, he is a psychologist and an educationalist who started or who's known as the founder and the father of the Reggio Emilia approach. After the Second World War, when the schools were destroyed, Italy was looking for a way of education that was new and more progressive. That is when Lawrence Malaguzzi came with this idea of 100 languages of children, and that is how this pedagogy came into existence. Now, before I begin, I have a little activity for all those who are attending the session. Can you all see my slide, Mr. Rizwan?
Yes, Miss. I can see.
Okay. So, those who are attending, I would like you to take 3 minutes and imagine that if I had to give you six of these bricks or these tiles, which are of the same size but in different colors, as you can see, how would you engage yourself in an activity using these six bricks? You could write it down for now. I would share your answers and at the end of the session. But now it could be anything, like you could make a tower, or you could do a maths, or you could write a number with place value. You could make it a set. You could use it for a sentence formation or anything that comes to your mind. I'm giving you 2 minutes for this activity where you have to use these. Imagine that you have these six bricks with you, and how could you use these six bricks in a very creative manner? You could just write it down on a
If I
piece of
get any
paper.
comment, I'm going to read aloud.
Yes.
Okay. You may describe the activity again, so those who join now they can hear about what the things they
Sure,
need to do
sure.
it.
Yeah, you have to imagine that you have been given these six bricks, which are of the same size but are in different colors. How would you use it in an activity for yourself? You have to think of the most creative way to use these six bricks. It could be
Are they
anything.
going to think about in mathematics perspective
Any,
or
it could be a
any?
math perspective. They could make a number. They could use the colors for place values. They could make a simple tower. They could look at their gross motor skill, and they could use their less dominant hand to make a tower. Anything that comes to their mind.
Yes, that's nice. I might thinking about the pattern.
Yes, pattern, yes. Pattern is the simplest and the easiest way to place these bricks, Rizwan sir. You could make a tower with your left hand if you're a right-handed person. You could actually assign place
I
values to
might
these.
thinking about addition, subtraction, or even
Yes,
multiplication.
yes.
We have got one comment from Miss Sherin. I will use it as a learning multiplication that we were talking about. That's great.
Yes, that's lovely. Okay, I think Rizwan sir will share the answers during the end of the session. Oh, I
Sure,
shall just give them
you can
one
go
more
for it.
minute. We can go forward now. Okay. So coming to my lecture or my presentation, which is totally about the 100 languages of children. What exactly is this 100 languages of children? There's a very nice poem that I'm going to read out now, which very clearly states what is meant by the 100 languages of children. No way the 100 is there. The child is made of 100. The child has 100 languages, 100 hands, 100 thoughts, 100 ways of thinking, of playing, of speaking. 100 always, 100 ways of listening, of marveling, of loving, 100 joys. For singing and understanding, 100 worlds to discover. 100 words to invent, 100 worlds to dream. The child has 100 languages and a hundred more. But they steal 99. The school and the culture separate the head from the body. They tell the child to think without hands, to do without head, to listen and not to speak, to understand without joy, to love and to marvel only at Easter and Christmas. They tell the child to discover the world already there, and of the 100, they steal 99. They tell the child that work and play, reality and fantasy, science and imagination, sky and earth, reason and dream, all things do not belong together. And thus they tell the child that the child, the child, sorry, and thus they tell the child that the 100 is not there. The child says, no way, the 100 is there. So, when we talk about the 100 languages, it is the different ways in which a child grasps things, understands things, and the different ways in which a child learns. It's a metaphor for the different ways in which a child, learns in school in through different ways. When I speak of these 100 languages, it is the different kind of skills that the child comes to school with. It could be the cognitive, communicative, symbolic, logical reasoning, ethical. It could be an imaginative or expressive. These are viewed as a tool that encourages children to explore their environment and to express themselves through multiple paths. And all their languages are through these paths. Now, what Lorris Malaguzzi said was that children learn through various ways, senses, and observation, each going through these various paths. So, now what is the 100 languages of children inspired Reggio Emilia approach, and why is it important to understand and implement it? As I said earlier, Lorris Malaguzzi was an early childhood educator. He's also known as the father of the Reggio Emilia approach. The Reggio Emilia approach model focuses heavily on social collaboration, encouraging children to work in groups and develop knowledge through communicating with others. As we all know, children in their early years are they are very curious, they are very powerful, they are very, very, very creative. And what this approach intends to do is to keep all of this alive in a child. The teacher or the facilitator, as it is called in the Reggio Emilia approach, has to make sure that she or he is capable of extracting the full potential of the child. This approach completely focuses on the belief that the children are able to express their ideas, thoughts, feelings, questions, and emotions. These could be performed through various activities, and as a facilitator, it's our duty to give them a choice. It could be drawing, painting, singing, acting, or anything. There are many different ways through which a child learns, and we are going to look at the various multiple intelligences that this approach looks into. When you speak about the Reggio Emilia approach and how children develop and learn, we are looking at three important parts of this approach. One is the parents, the teachers, and the learning environment, which is the third teacher. when children are first in the hands of their parents, so whatever they are learning, and when they come into this world, their first learning experience is from their parents. Then the next step is when they go to the preschool or their early years. So when they are at preschool, they have the opportunity to learn from their teachers. It's the relationship that they form with their teachers. And once they are at school, it's a proper community that the child forms with the teacher, the parents, and the community at large. Now, when I talk about the learning environment being the third teacher in the Reggio Emilia approach, it means that we have to create this environment for the children and for us to make sure that we can tap what we are talking about as the 100 languages. So, the learning environment in school has to be very conducive and very fulfilling for a child's learning. Now, when you talk about this approach, there are three important aspects that we look into: the resources and experiences, which is a very important part of the 100 languages of children. When we talk about the Reggio Emilia approach, the resources are all natural resources. When we talk about resources at a center that is using a Reggio Emilia approach, it includes pebbles, stones, leaves, pine cones, everything and anything that is found in nature. So that is what we believe that gives the best experience to a child or to a preschool child. Also, what this approach looks at is the opportunity to think differently. Each child, I'm sure, as teachers, as facilitators, as educators, we all know that no two children think, the same. They all think differently, and as educators, it is our duty to make sure that we make sure that we know how different the child is and how intellectually thinks in different ways. Also, this approach gives a lot of importance to listening to children respectfully. Children to be treated as adults. Children, we have to be very careful about what they have to say. We need to give them a listening ear and see what they have to say. When we talk about the resources in this approach, we usually look at I'll talk about the ones that are really famous and really very helpful, as I have used these myself. One are the open ended materials. Now, what are these open ended materials? These open ended materials are stones, pebbles, anything a child can create magic with. It is just lying there when a child does not touch it. It does not do anything on its own. It is passive when it's just lying there. But as soon as it's in a child's hand, the open ended materials, they create magic. So, Reggio Emilia approach, the focus is when you let children play with these open ended materials. Loose parts. I'm a big fan of loose parts. You can collect it from school, you can ask the parents to send it, and the children just go berserk with creativity when you give them anything to build or do with loose parts. Ateliers and maker spaces, as it's called, is a very important aspect of this approach, where children are given an opportunity to create, build, and to express themselves in one way or the other. Through children's experiences, even when they are painting, sculpting, or writing, they express their thinking and understanding of the world around them. They express the thinking and understanding, which promotes the myriad ways in which children interpret and represent the ideas, circumstances, and problems they are facing. Children are extremely capable that they have deep, complex thoughts and ideas. When you talk about an atelier, they are environment that promote knowledge and creativity, suggesting questions and generating evocations. They are beauty that produces knowledge and vice versa. These places where the 100 languages are enacted. These ateliers are usually created in certain corners of the school where you have a light table, where you have a stand table, you have science corner, you have the literacy corner, can have the math corner. These are all the different things that ateliers can be created. Coming to why this approach is important. This approach is important, especially when you have an inclusive setup in a school. Now, with so many schools being and creating inclusive setup spaces, it works extremely well with children who come with some who are not as able as the other children or have come with a have a learning disability. So Reggio Emilia approach really encourages those children to be confident and to create whatever they can work with. Children develop multiple skills at the same time. When a child is given the freedom to perform or to create something at what interests him, by giving him resources that interest him, a child can really surprise you by what he's creating. Other than just like, sitting in the classroom and just writing. When a child is writing, I think he's only developing two skills at one time. But when he is creating something in a maker space or in an atelier, or simply playing with open-ended toys, he is developing multiple skills at the same time. I am going to share some examples of this later. It is the most sustainable method of learning. Now that we are at that age where we all are looking at climate change and we all are wondering how to reduce the impact of plastic and things like that in the world, I think it's the best idea to go back to the Reggio approach. When you're using the most sustainable resources, you're having your provocation set up and using the most sustainable tools. I think this is a wonderful thing that educators can even do for the environment, so that we have a better future for our children. It builds the foundation for inquiry based learning. So, when we talk about schooling at a higher level, like when we talk about the PYP, we are giving so much attention to STEM classes, we are giving so much attention to hands on activities. This stems from early years, and when children are going to do this at the early years through this approach, it will definitely build their curiosity to continue this in their later years of schooling, and forever they will be a curious learner. Helps in stimulating the multiple intelligences of a child. As we know that there are 8 multiple intelligences of a child that have been recognized by Howard Gardner, we will see how each of these intelligences is given a chance in this approach. It identifies a children's role in defining the curriculum. I remember when I used to teach in Prep 1 and Grade 1, I used to just tell children that, this is the unit, and what do you think we must learn in this unit? And my children used to come down with a list of questions. Miss, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to learn this. I really didn't have to bother with the curriculum because my entire curriculum was developed by these 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds who knew what they wanted to study, whether it was life underwater or whether it was their mindfulness. It was the unit was on mindfulness. They laid down the entire curriculum as to what they wanted to study. This is the beauty of the Reggio Emilia approach. When you give the children the confidence, the freedom to decide what they want to study and they are the own, they create their own inquiry cycle. They focus on the learning community and they help to grow. And when they are given so much freedom to decide themselves what they would like to learn and how they would like to learn, they grow into a self secure, empathetic, creative, and a mature child. We always talk about a holistic development of a child. The best thing is to keep this alive during the early years. So when you talk about the 100 languages, you are keeping in mind the holistic development of a child. And what the teacher needs to do is to identify the particular intelligence of a child in which she thinks he will develop the most. And then she creates or needs to give the child things to do or activities to do to get the best out of that child. This approach also sparks curiosity in a child, which helps him to be a lifelong learner. Now, coming to what the multiple intelligences, what is this multiple intelligence I'm talking about? Is the visual spatial intelligence, the linguistic verbal intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, interpersonal, intrapersonal, naturalistic, and musical. So these are the different intelligences that a child can possess, and no two child come with the same level of intelligence. One child can be a visual spatial learner, while another can be a completely kinesthetic learner. What do? You give them activities, or you see you focus their attention, or you focus their activity in that direction where these of the intelligences can be honed on. So, just to give you a little brief of what these intelligences are, a child who is very good at logical and mathematical intelligence, who excels in math logical thinking, are mostly likely to become bankers or accountants. Spatial intelligence excels in shapes, designs, graphics, and visualization. Musical intelligence excels in performing and composing musical pieces. And all these intelligences are recognized at the early years when a child is between, like, is going to preschool. This is when all these intelligences are already being shaped by in school. A kinesthetic learner excels in performing sports, physical activities, and body movements. Interpersonal skills is the ability to organize people, group activities, and social relationships. Intrapersonal skill is the ability to understand one's inner feelings, self realization, and to know about oneself. Naturalistic learners are they love plants, animals, and nature. They understand the natural world. They do their best when you leave them out in the open, on the open garden. They are curious and they learn to observe from nature. Existential intelligence is concerned with inner life of mind, body, and soul. Now, these are the activities I would like to give you some example using the Reggio Emilia approach that we have done, that I have done as a facilitator in school, where children are learning symmetry using their visual spatial intelligence. So they've simply picked up some leaves from the garden and just drawn a line of symmetry, as you can see, and they're just making their own symmetrical figures. Learning place values and skip counting using their logical and mathematical intelligence. I love to use blocks personally when I'm doing place values, and I also like to use ice cream sticks. I think they're an excellent resource for math. They make excellent math resource. Also, there was a time I remember when we were in lockdown and we had to worry about what resources the children had at home, and we used vegetables. We used onions and we used ladyfinger and we used tomato for to show them the place values of hundred, tens, and ones. It was so exciting for them, and they did learn. So sometimes it is just the creativity of a facilitator, but children, and you can find excellent resources if you think a bit of how you want to take your lesson ahead. My class was very hesitant to write when they were in prep 2. Every time I used to tell them that it's time to write now, and they would be like, no miss, we do not want to write now. So the best way was to take them out, write some words on ice cream sticks, and let them use the playground and give them a chalk, and they did the activity wonderfully. My idea was just to get them to write, and they did it beautifully when they stepped out of the classroom. So I had a bunch of kinesthetic learners who refused to sit in one place and write. Okay, now naturalistic intelligence is what I think all children have and are really, really, they really love to learn once they are in nature. So we were doing this germination activity where we got some seeds. They got seeds from home. We planted some seeds, and the plant actually grew and the seed actually germinated. Here we integrated it with writing because they wrote some affirmations, as you can see on the pots. And so I had two activities done at the same time. They enjoyed watering the plants, they enjoyed taking care of it, and so also some writing work done here. Some children are very, very, they love to use their existential intelligence. They love doing meditation, they love doing yoga. I think this is something that the teacher has to identify and has to keep alive in a child. Because when you look at the holistic development, of course, this is very, very, very important, like the other intelligences. Now, connecting the Reggio Emilia approach with the IBPYP. When we are in the IBPYP, we all want our children to be constructive students. So now when we talk about the Reggio Emilia approach, it will lead to constructive led student inquiry that can provide students with the opportunity to ask meaningful questions about real world issues and find answers to those questions through meaningful inquiry and hands on learning tasks. When we are in the PYP and we are expecting our children to be curious learners and to have a unit which is inquiry driven, this skill is best developed in their early years. So, what better way than to develop it through the Reggio Emilia approach, where you are giving children the most productive way to do this, to be inquirers, to be lifelong learners. This approach honors the whole being and holds a holistic image of the child, the physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. Students are also understood as leaders and active protagonists in their learning. The teachers are just viewed as facilitators and researchers who provoke student learning. So when we talk about student teachers' role here in this approach, teachers need to redirect their attention to three specific areas to enrich the children's intelligence. Firstly, to the environmental condition and messages they provide children. When I talk about the environmental conditions, I'm talking about the environment as the third teacher. Secondly, they a kind of support and relationship they develop themselves and the children. Thirdly, they need to match what they know about the ways in which the children are intelligent and learn with teaching strategies designed to maximize the full development of each child. This emphasizes children they possess different. So this is what it is about the Reggio Emilia approach, where the teacher or the facilitator has to understand the child's intelligence and develop teaching strategies so that you can maximize the full development of each child. Now, when you spoke about the multiple intelligences of each child, what do you do? What do you do to ignite the multiple intelligences of the child? You have to provide opportunities, as like I've said earlier, you have to provide opportunities across a range of intelligence domains, like give them activities or provide them with opportunities to engage in experience across a range of intelligence domain, know the strengths and interests of each child, and also the child's role in defining the curriculum. Understanding the 100 languages of children is the first step to understanding the importance and needs of hands on activities in classroom today. Today, when we are giving so much focus on doing hands on activities in classroom and having STEM lessons, it all comes down to the Reggio Emilia approach, where children are understanding and doing this at a very early age. As it's written here, the 100 languages of children emphasizes the importance of celebrating the many intelligences that they possess, the ways that they can express themselves, and the different ways to be and know in this world as they embark on the learning journey and quest for meaning making. Here you can see the children. We had an activity that we did where we had, it was a mindfulness activity where children had painted flower pots, empty flower pots, and we had filled it with water and we had kept it for the stray dogs. They were very excited, and we went and we kept that water bowl at the outside our school, and we filled it with water, and they were very excited when the dogs used to come and drink water from it. The metaphor of the 100 languages of children support a truly transdisciplinary approach to education. The IB learner profiles and key concepts complement and support the 100 languages in that they highlight dispositions of expression that allow for student intelligences to shine while encouraging international mindedness and cultural relativism. So when we talk about most of the schools have their vision today to develop children into global citizens and having international mindedness. This is important that we encourage and we develop this among our children right at the early age. So when we talk about doing following this kind of a vision in high school, we must develop them in the early years. This is what is the importance of the Reggio Emilia approach or the 100 languages of children. And this, I think this is the best way, or this is the most important way a child can learn in his early years. because this, when a child is learning through this way, he or she is, reflecting on his own path of learning, is capable of doing what she wants to do, is taking the entire ownership of his learning journey. So I would like to stop sharing my screen now. Also, there is, I would like to say that once then when a child other this approach, this Lorris Malaguzzi approach, is evident that play is a very evident part of this approach. It is evident that play adapted to children's intelligence is likely to improve their learning experience, potentially resulting in an increase of attention and motivation. When you see that a child is sitting in a classroom and doing an activity where he's sitting and writing, or is forced to do something, you will see that he's jittery, he does not want to sit for so much time. But as soon as you let a child play and learn, you will see that the child is in his own zone, is liking what he is doing, he is learning. But this, the teacher has to be very focused, the teacher has to be aware of what the child is doing, is has to, on the back of her mind, she has to also see and ask questions to the child. It cannot be like the child is just left to play alone. The teacher has to be at the back of the child, monitoring the play and seeing what the child is doing. I remember one incident where, we might also not sometimes get into thinking like that, but there was a child in my class, and he was like in nursery, and I had asked them to draw a traffic signal. And when he drew the traffic signal, all the children drew three colors: red, yellow, and green. But this child drew red, and he colored the red, yellow, and green with black circles. He was the only child who did it. And I was like, why haven't you drawn all the three colors, and why have you drawn only one color at the signal? And he's like, Miss, whenever I'm at the signal, I see only one color. I don't see all the three colors at the same time. And I was like, that is a wonderful, wonderful observation. Like, even I did not think about it. When you are at a signal, you only see one color. And that was an excellent observation made by a child who's 4 years old. Why not treat them as adults? Why do we think that a child is not capable of in fact, they are so much more smarter than what we are. They are capable of doing research at that age. They're capable of finding things that we have never thought of, and they will leave us speechless with their observation and experiences. So once in class, while we were doing this unit, sharing the planet, we found a little caterpillar, and we bought it in class. And the children were taking care of it, and they knew that the caterpillar would survive only on the leaves of its host plant. So every day, my children, I'm telling you, the level of responsibility that they showed during this task would have never come from any other task that I would have given them. They used to take care of the caterpillar. They used to clean the case in which the caterpillar was kept. They made sure they got the leaves from the host plants every day and fed the caterpillar. They took turns on weekends to take it home. This is what I mean when experiential learning can teach you, nothing else can. So that's how the caterpillar then became a fully fledged butterfly in 3 weeks. And I cannot tell you the excitement of our children. So we need to look at ways in which we need to develop, experiential learning, children to be more outdoors. And this is what they need. And this is the age of doing it, right? If we take them the glory of the outdoors at this age, they are never going to learn it at when they grow up. This has to be developed at the early years. And I'm a really firm believer of the 100 languages of children. And as a facilitator, I think that's the best learning that happens at that level, at that age. Now, when I talk about, I would like to add a little more about the learning environment. As we say that the learning environment is the third teacher, it is a very conducive, it should be a very conducive environment for a child to play, right? Because if the natural play was not supported by the environment to stimulate social skills, imagination, creativity, Knowing the child's interest and their ability, the teacher has to prepare the environment in such a way that the children learn in that environment. And when I talk about the Reggio Emilia approach, we are looking at resources that could be shells, rocks, wooden blocks, clay, plant, and flowers. There is lots to learn from these natural environment and these natural resources. So rather than investing in toys, these resources can actually make it a very interesting way to learn for children. And let's talk about being sustainable, and let's talk about being sustainable schools and using sustainable resources. I think it's not that difficult if we put our head to it, that we need to get sustainable resources for children to learn. Also, when children are exploring their 100 languages with movement, or by creating animals with clay, talking to one another, or talking to their teacher, smelling new flowers and listening to sounds, reflecting on the relevance of these multiple intelligence, two of the intelligence that are catered for with the use of the natural resources mentioned is the kinesthetic learner and the verbal linguistic learner. Some children respond so well to music, and some just enjoy dancing. Dancing, we think that the child is just dancing, but can you look at it from a different point of view? He's learning patterns, he's learning tune, he's learning so many mathematical concepts just by dancing. So yeah, so then that's what I would like to say is that, when a child is given the freedom to learn in the natural environment, which is regulated, they come up with the best results, and they can be the best learners, and they can take the full advantage of being of the learning cycle. Malaguzzi's approach is that the play is a basis of life for all children. What do children have to do in their early years? They've got to play, right? So, play is described as a scaffolding for development, a vehicle for increasing neural structures, and a means by which all children practice skills which they will need later in life. So today, when we talk about children who go to school, we want them to be. We want a holistic. We are looking at a holistic development of the child. We want the child to be, a good listener. We want him to develop his multiple intelligences, but we are not giving the child to develop this. We are not giving a chance for the child to develop these skills. These skills get developed mostly and majorly in the early years, and that only can happen through this Malaguzzi approach, where you are giving so much freedom to the child to develop his various senses and intelligences. Also, I would like to share that, when we talk about this approach, it's not only I would want teachers to think that it's not only during the initial early years that this can be done in the classrooms or in schools. I'm sure this can be. I have been myself practicing this in grade 1, and I've been a grade 2 teacher. I have practiced it in grade 2 as well. So when we try to get the hands-on learning into the classroom, it is very evident that children learn, and they take the responsibility of their own learning journey, which is what we want, that's what we looking at, what we are looking at, developing their skills. So this happens best when they take charge of their responsibility of their own learning. So that is what I wanted to share, like, let's give this approach a chance in all schools, and let's look at the sustainable way of learning and teaching, because I'm sure the teachers and students are both going to be mostly benefited by this. Also, when I talk about this approach, it is I think followed in, I don't know how well it is followed internationally, but I see most schools giving a lot of importance to a lot of importance to hands-on learning. So when we talk about hands-on learning, and when we talk about STEM activities that we do in schools, this is what it has to be. This is what children need to do, and this is what they are coming to school for. To have fun and to learn. And this is the best way of learning, where they are using multiple skills at the same time. They're using their hands, they're using their mind, and they are doing so much more research than we are expecting them to do. Okay, going back to the game that I had shown in the beginning of the session, do we have any answers for that question, sir? Rizwan, sir?
No, I think many people have joined after the second slide. So I think many of them missed the thing. So if you want, you can share the slide again. And
Okay,
we have more than 30 people at the moment.
okay,
And many of them are giving comments. So I think they will be able to relate your question or game. Now, if you want to show it in the slide, you
okay.
can do that.
Yes, I'll show the slide now. So, just to, uh, I'll just share my screen. I have a little activity here to see how well we use our multiple intelligences.
You can click on share screen. Yes, now it's coming. It's visible now.
Okay, then Rizwan, is my slide being seen? Okay, Rizwan, is my slide visible?
Yes, you can instruct your game activity with the audience. I think they
Yes.
will be able to relate the game.
So, whoever is here and who's been a part of this presentation, I have a little activity for you. Imagine if you had these six bricks with you, six bricks of the same size but of different colors. How would you engage it in an activity? It could be anything. It could be making a tower. It could be any, you could design a math sum with this. You could make a sentence with this. You could do anything that comes to your mind using these six bricks. So I would like to see in the comment section what comes to your mind. What activity can you design with these six bricks? I hope my question is clear and easy. You have to use these six bricks and engage yourself in an activity in any way. It could be a mathematical way, it could be a simple activity, a building activity where you've made a tower or you've made a track or anything. Get creative. I want to see something creative that you can do with this. You can think about your gross motor skills, or you could think about using your less dominant hand for an activity. It could be anything.
Someone wrote Sima Sharma. Miss Sima Sharma wrote blocks.
Yes, these are blocks, but how are you going to use these blocks?
In what activity or in what concept or topic you want to use it, right?
Anything. Like if I was given these blocks, maybe I would make a number. I would give each color a place value and you could form a number. Or maybe I could make a tower using my less dominant hand, which might sound very easy, but trust me, it's not. My children have been doing this in the classroom. It helps them to develop their less used hands, which they are less dominant hand. Yeah, they are six different colors, but they are of the same size. I will use it to shapes. Okay, yes. They're all the same shape, so maybe you could stack them up irregularly and build a tower. And if you give each of this set to your children, you will see that they do wonderfully. I wanted to do this activity. I wanted you get answers just to show you how each of us also think differently. So imagine children, young children, how differently they think. We also are never going to give the same answer. I'm not never going to do the same thing as you are going to do. So similarly, children as well are not going to do the same thing with the same set of blocks. That is what we have to, that is what we have to realize, and that is what we have to understand as preschool facilitator, as Reggio Emilia approach, as the 100 languages of children that I'm talking about. That each child is different, and each child has a different level of thinking, has a different level of creativity. And as the facilitator, we have to understand at what level, at what the child is good at, and tap the skills from there. Castle? Okay, that's a nice answer. Yes, you can make a castle with these bricks. Similarly, when we talk, still I'm getting some more answers. I would like to add that we also do painting in school. So we use, paint brushes that are made by leaves. Children pick fresh flowers and they make leaves, and they attach it to they attach it to the stem, and they make paint brushes, and they use these paint brushes themselves to paint in the classroom, which is an excellent idea. When we don't have to, they have their own paint brushes. They have as many paint brushes as they want. Even pebbles, we get it from, from these nurseries. The children like to paint it. They like to write words on it. Yes, I have another answer. Use these blocks to make a bridge. Yes, that could be an excellent STEM activity to do in class with kids, to make a bridge. That's a wonderful answer. So yes, when I was talking about as we are getting the answers, I would like to talk about the resources that we use in our Reggio Emilia approach. So the first thing was when I spoke about the brushes, the painting brushes that the children make using leaves and flowers from the garden. Then we use a lot of pebbles, and these children, when you give them these pebbles to paint, they write numbers on it, they write alphabets on it, they can write 3-letter words on it. I would like to write my initial alphabets out of it. Yeah, that also could be used. If you could think, Kasha, that's a nice answer. If you give it some more thought, maybe you could use it in your class, and you could tell your children to write their name on this. Yes, bridge is an excellent option. When you actually this when you give the use it for stamping, for painting, excellent. Reshma, that's wonderful. You can actually use it to paint, dip it in paint, and you could just paint it with the help of that on a piece of paper and create something really beautiful. So we have answer for in math. Somebody looked at it from the math point of view. Somebody looked at it from the STEM point of view. Somebody looked at it from the art point of view. Somebody looked at it from the language point of view. So we have so many different point of views coming from teachers itself. So imagine what children are capable of doing when they have given the right resources. Any questions, or you have any doubts about the 100 languages of children or the Reggio Emilia approach? You can put it in the chat box. I would love to answer it.
Dear audience, if you have any question, you can write it here. Yes, if you have any question, you can write it here. And Miss, you have one surprise from Miss Asnafarin. She has made one certificate for you. I'm going to share the screenshot to you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir, it's coming up.
Yeah. So this is a beautiful certificate for you. And dear audience, if you like to be a speaker in here, we have one a Google form for you. So I'm going to give the link in the chat box. So you will be able to fill up the form, and we're going to invite you to come and speak about your topic. So this is the form. Okay. So I'm going to share the link. Just give me 1 second. We have got a few more things. There is a question, I guess. Would you be sharing the presentation? Okay, I think she's asking about would you be sharing this presentation? Maybe she wants to get your slides.
Okay, I would like to share I don't mind sharing the presentation. Maybe you could get in touch with me, I don't know, on LinkedIn or somehow. I wouldn't mind sharing my
This is a live session, and so you can get it from this YouTube
Okay.
as well, or you can contact with her personally.
Thank you. Somebody said it was an interesting session. I personally am a big fan of this approach, and I cannot think of any other way that my children can learn. And we are so much into it. And since I have this teacher looping concept in my school, my children are well aware now that if I am going to do something, it's going to be somewhere outdoors, or she's going to get some flower, or she's going to get some pots, and she's going to make us do something. But trust me, this is the most wonderful experience you will get as a facilitator, as a teacher. Just try it, just try implementing this approach in your school, in your classroom, and you'll see that your children will do wonders, and you will love how the inquiry cycle goes, or you will love how the learning is going ahead. I don't think there are
Okay,
any
thank you so
questions.
much, Miss, for your wonderful session. Yeah, there is no questions. We didn't get any questions. Everyone is appreciating your about your topic and session. Thank you so much. And dear
Thank
audience,
you.
thank you for joining uh, in our session. And if you feel interest to be a speaker here, the link is given in the chat box, and you can fill up the form, and we'll welcome you here. Someone said a very interesting session, Ms. Reshma. Could you share your email ID so we'll get in touch with you? So, would you like to give your email ID here so I can
Yes,
put
but
in the comment
I'm
section?
able to enter it in the comment section. uh, I would just say it here. I would just
Yeah,
say it
you can
here.
even write it after the session.
Okay, I would write it in the comment section later once the session is over. Yes, you could definitely get in touch with me, Miss Reshma. Thank you, Miss
Yeah, after the
Nirmala.
session, also you can write it in the chat box. So those who wants to get the slides, they can reach to you personally.
Yes, yes, they can.
Thank you so much, Miss Sabah. We are going
Thank you,
to
Rizwan.
end the session now.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you for this opportunity, Rizwan sir.
Great. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Take care. Bye bye.